The history of elections stretches back thousands of years, tracing humanity's long pursuit of governance through collective decision-making. Though we often associate elections with modern democracies, the concept of choosing leaders or making decisions by vote has ancient roots. From the earliest examples in ancient Greece to today's complex global systems, elections have evolved significantly, reflecting changes in political philosophy, technology, and social organization. One of the earliest known instances of an election took place in ancient Greece, around the 5th century BCE. The city-state of Athens is often credited with creating the first known democracy, where citizens could participate directly in the political process. Although this wasn't an election as we know it today, the Athenian model involved a system where citizens gathered to make decisions by majority vote, directly participating in their government. The Athenians also practiced a unique form of election by lottery, known as sortition, to fill certain government positions. This was intended to avoid corruption and ensure that power was not concentrated in the hands of a wealthy elite. While not entirely democratic by today's standards, only male citizens could participate, excluding women, slaves, and foreigners. It laid the groundwork for the concept of governance through citizen involvement. Ancient Rome also experimented with elections, albeit with a different structure. The Roman Republic, established around 509 BCE, featured a complex electoral system where citizens voted for representatives to hold public offices. However, unlike the Athenian model of direct democracy, Rome's elections were representative. The Roman electoral process was heavily influenced by class and wealth, as voting was weighted in favor of the aristocracy. Wealthier citizens had more influence, which they wielded through a system of voting tribes and centuries that effectively gave the upper classes a disproportionate amount of power. Despite these inequities, Rome's approach to elections influenced many subsequent political systems, embedding the notion of elected representation into Western political thought. After the fall of the Roman Empire, much of Europe reverted to various forms of monarchy and feudalism, where rulers were typically determined by heredity rather than by election. However, pockets of electoral practice persisted. In some medieval European cities and territories, guilds, councils, or assemblies retained a degree of self-governance through elections. The Holy Roman Empire, for example, utilized an electoral system to choose its emperors, although the electorate was limited to a small group of noble electors. Similarly, in parts of medieval England, local officials like mayors and sheriffs were sometimes elected, albeit by a restricted group of property-owning men. Elections as we understand them today began to take shape in the early modern period. The establishment of the English Parliament with the Magna Carta in 1215 introduced the idea that rulers should be constrained by laws and that certain rights could not be infringed upon by a king. The development of parliamentary democracy in Britain included the gradual expansion of the electorate and the establishment of regular elections. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Enlightenment thinkers like John Locke and Montesquieu were championing the ideas of popular sovereignty, individual rights, and the separation of powers. These ideas would fuel the rise of constitutional democracies in both Europe and the Americas. In the United States, the adoption of the Constitution in 1787 established one of the first modern democratic systems with an emphasis on regular elections. The U.S. electoral system was based on the principle of representative democracy, where citizens vote for representatives to act on their behalf. This system included the innovative concept of a checks and balances structure with separate executive, legislative, and judicial branches. While voting rights were initially restricted to property-owning white men, the U.S. electoral system has gradually expanded to include women, African Americans, and other marginalized groups through amendments, court rulings, and social movements. The 19th and early 20th centuries saw the spread of democratic elections around the world, often fueled by nationalist movements and anti-colonial struggles. Many European countries transitioned from monarchies to parliamentary democracies, expanding suffrage and establishing electoral systems based on proportional representation or single-member districts. The expansion of suffrage was a central theme during this period, with various movements advocating for the right to vote for working-class men, women, and ethnic minorities. In 1893, New Zealand became the first self-governing country to grant women the right to vote, a milestone that paved the way for suffrage movements globally. Meanwhile, in the United States, the 19th Amendment, ratified in 1920, extended the right to vote to women, marking a significant step toward a more inclusive democracy. The 20th century brought further innovations in election systems, often in response to technological advancements and changing societal expectations. Secret ballots became standard in most democracies, protecting voters' privacy and reducing the potential for coercion. Voting machines and later, electronic voting systems were introduced to streamline the process and improve accuracy. However, these advancements also brought challenges, including concerns about election security, voter fraud, and the integrity of electronic systems. The era also saw the rise of international organizations dedicated to monitoring elections, such as the United Nations and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, which sought to promote free and fair elections worldwide. Throughout the latter half of the 20th century, many countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America gained independence from colonial powers, often establishing electoral democracies as part of their new governments. However, the path to democratic elections in these regions has often been fraught with challenges, including military coups, authoritarian regimes, and widespread electoral fraud. Despite these obstacles, elections have become an increasingly common means of establishing and legitimizing political authority, even in countries that do not adhere to Western democratic norms. The fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 marked another significant moment for electoral democracy, as many former Eastern Bloc countries transitioned from single-party systems to multi-party democracies. The collapse of communist regimes across Eastern Europe led to a wave of elections as newly independent states sought to establish democratic institutions. However, the transition was not always smooth, and some countries struggled with corruption, authoritarianism, and political instability. Despite these setbacks, the end of the Cold War ushered in an era of democratization, with an increasing number of countries adopting elections as the standard method for selecting leaders. Today, elections are held in nearly every country around the world, though their nature and fairness vary widely. In liberal democracies, elections typically feature multiple political parties, free media, and independent electoral commissions, offering citizens a genuine choice between candidates. However, in many countries, elections are marred by voter suppression, fraud, and authoritarian control. In recent years, digital technology has transformed elections, with social media playing a major role in campaigning, voter mobilization, and sometimes even interference. The rise of big data has allowed campaigns to target voters with unprecedented precision, while concerns about misinformation and cyber attacks have raised questions about the integrity of modern elections. The expansion of global democratic norms has also led to increasing scrutiny of electoral practices. Organizations such as the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, IDEA, and the Carter Center work to promote democratic values, monitor elections, and provide technical assistance to emerging democracies. Election observers now play a critical role in assessing the fairness and transparency of elections, highlighting the ongoing challenges in ensuring that elections truly reflect the will of the people. The history of elections, then, is one of constant evolution, reflecting humanity's quest for fair and legitimate governance. From the ancient city-states of Greece to today's global democracies, elections have been both a tool for empowerment and a battleground for control. They represent our collective aspirations for self-determination, accountability, and equality, even as they remind us of the complexities and challenges inherent in the democratic process. Today's elections stand as both a reflection of our past struggles and a testament to our enduring hope for a future where every voice can be heard. Hey there, thanks for watching. I've personally always loved a great story. I've always felt that there's so much richness and lessons to be taken from all of the things that happened before us in our past. And on this channel, that's exactly what we'll be covering. All of the social, economic, and cultural contributions of all the different countries and societies that came before us on this planet. So if you liked what you saw and you want to see more, click subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.